welcome back to Coffee with Spects, featuring me, Brycetheprince, or Brycetheprince Gaming, and we got Spects.
I'm a sad boy. The Angels find new ways to hurt me day after day.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go with a different layout the next couple weeks. Today we're gonna talk a little bit of Angels talk, and then we'll move on to Spects talk.
Yeah. So should I explain? Yeah. So should I explain why I came with this idea and I dropped on you like 7 hours ago?
Well, let's get to that once we're done with the Angels talk.
They hurt me.
Talk about why we're gonna do this. We can intro the whole thing.
Here's
the thing.
By the way, we were talking about this before we started recording, and I hate them.
So, here's the thing. The Angels have been bad. Well, the bullpen in particular has been bad. The bullpen and the back end of our lineup has been pretty bad. But we're still hovering right around the top of the AL West. The good news is everybody is just as bad as we are. That
is a horrible thing to say. So I'm just going to read off the stats here, and you tell me which sounds delicious to you. Wait, no, this is last year. Can I get current stats, please?
I mean, look, here. Last year we were doing super good at this point, but what ended up happening? I don't know. If we could float around 500 the entire season and then make a run at the end.
No, I get the whole point that it looks early on, it's a microcosm, but I'm just going to read numbers that are not exactly, positivity inducing here. Jimmy Herget, who was good last year in 5 2/3 innings, is 0-2 with 8 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 homers allowed, and 3 strikeouts, a whip of 1.41, an ERA of 6.35. Matt Moore in 4 1/3 innings pitch has allowed 2 hits, 2 runs, walked 1, 4 strikeouts, a whip under 1, but a high ERA. I think that a lot of it has to do with innings pitch. Quijada's been decent, no runs allowed. His whip's only 0.4, so he's been a bright spot. Carlos Estevez, who you were talking about as like a bright spot, he's allowed 5 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks, which is a little concerning. 7 strikeouts, a whip of 1.8, and an ERA of 1.8 as well. Whip's a little high. Ryan Tepera, who needs to be launched into the center part of the sun, has a whip of 2.7 and an ERA of 10.8 in 3 1/3 inning. His left-handed counterpart, who also is probably going to get released in about a week and a half here, Aaron Loop, has a whip of 1.36 and ERA of 4.91. That went up today. I think I read on Baseball Reference it's in the 7s now. Jaime Barria, who I also think is very overrated in the Angels, has 8, almost 9 innings and a whip of under 1, but an ERA of 4.15. Andrew Wantz, who got optioned down because he's the only one who had options, was the only bright spot in this bullpen with a whip of 0.2, an ERA of 0, and 5 innings pitched with 6 strikeouts and 0 walks. Do I need to continue?
Now look. Here's what I will say. How many weeks are we into the season?
We're still early on. But like I said, the concerning part for me is, yes, we can be like, we have no unidentified roles, but realistically, in a perfect world, Andrew Wantz is still up here, and Andrew Wantz should really be the closer because he's the best pitcher we have, or at least the one used in high leverage situations. But we're in a spot where Perry's going to be basically clutching everything in his hands, because realistically, in a perfect world, the guy who probably would have gotten sent down is probably either Tucker Davidson or you just release Ryan Tepera, because it's like, what are you doing at this point? But we're so afraid that these guys are going to get caught on somewhere and flourish that we're stuck with subpar talent. And I'm not trying to be like, call up Ben Joyce, because Ben Joyce has his own problems. But it's one of those things like, you got to plug this hole sooner or later. Or like I said to other people was, okay, if the bullpen's a problem, then these pitchers need to go deeper into games. And when you're only getting 4 out of Patrick Sandoval tonight in a game 1, in a game against Boston, that starts a 2-week span. We're not getting, the Angels play don't get a day off, I think, until the 1st. So they're playing 16 straight games. You can't have these issues. Like, these guys are going to have to either go deep in the games, or we're going to have to make cuts.
Well, I mean, that I won't ignore that. I won't say that that's untrue. What I will say, though, is while we've been struggling, we're still sitting around the top of the AL West. We're still sitting around 500 baseball. The Angels haven't really gotten going this year. I think the promising thing to look at right now at this point in the season. But I'm very pragmatic. I understand that if a lot of these issues aren't fixed, this is going to be a long season. And regardless, it's probably going to be a long season. I'm very pragmatic. I know sometimes I come across as an optimist, but once the Angels have shown me that it's, not going good, then I will I'll throw in the towel when it's time to throw in the towel. But the Angels have performed better than they did last year when they had struggles last year.
Yeah.
And that's the good news. The good news is they have time to get this figured out. They have the good news is once players, particularly even on the offense, start clicking, that will take some of the pressure off the pitching, and then we'll be able to see some, I mean, now that's that being said, there has been some games where the offense was great, and like that game against the Blue Jays where we were up 6-0, we still ended up losing 12-10, I think.
No, I think it was more like, I don't even remember that was.
Yeah, no, I think because we turned it up 10-10, and then we.
As long as it doesn't compile, it'll be fine. But I think too, it's like you're gonna get. I think a lot of Angel fans are gonna be very hyperactive, especially for what happened last year. That you're not gonna get a lot of. This team's not gonna get a lot of leash. It's gonna be a very much a, hey, fix this thing yesterday sort of situation. It's not gonna be Perry's gonna have time to fix it. It's gonna be fix it now. Because everyone's under the impression that this is it is what it is. And like I said, when you're sort of put in the position that he is in, I mean, unfortunately for Perry, I think it's a year for him to put his money where his mouth is. Because Artie loves firing GMs, and he loves firing them quick.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Epler.
I mean, really, the problem comes from the top down. The problem is if we had a new owner at this point, we would have at least maybe been able to shore up our bullpen a little bit better with better options. But
Billy Epler lasted 5 years. So
come back and say, hey, keep the cost cut.
Yeah, so Billy Epler lasted 5 years as an Angels GM, but hey, like I said, I think at this point,
here's the problem. If he does fire Perry, that's just another reset. It's just another, look, Perry, I think, given time, leads this team to the promised land.
I'm going to say that I think...
That's my personal opinion.
I think the flip side of that coin is I think if they lose Ohtani, they're going to lose a lot of fans. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of executives in there who are going to be or even in the Angels organization won't be like, hey, you know what?
Sure. This year is
maybe
the high pressure year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like we've always said with Angels talk, there's not a whole lot to talk about right now. They're kind of middling. They're kind of bad at times, good at times. I think given time, we'll see what this organization really is, or what this team really is this year. But it is what it is. But
I mean, it is a long season, and it is sort of difficult yet not difficult to sort of put things in a microcosm. I mean, I know better, and I know you know better too. But here we are.
Sure. And I mean, look, the the Rays got their streak snapped, so I mean, anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
Although to be fair, they got their streak snapped by the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are looking pretty good this year. But anywho, let's move on to the main part of this podcast. I think the remainder of this podcast is dedicated to this portion.
Okay, so
who knows how long it'll be? It could be 20 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour.
Yeah, who knows?
So, but what was your reasoning?
My reasoning for this was we're coming up on the 1 year of this basically coming back, and I think, and I haven't done this in my 2.5-ish, 2 years of doing content somewhat consistently. And that's just sort of doing sort of like answering questions. I had plans to do this when I first started, but it never really took shape. And I figured having a podcast and a co-host, we could kind of do 1 week where I'm interviewing Bryce, and then 1 week where Bryce interviewing me. I figured since it's on my stuff, this is on my stuff, I guess I should lead it off. There might be a week gap because we want to have one of our friends on in the near future. So it either might be back-to-back weeks where it'll be all Spects, and then 1 week it'll be all Bryce. Both of us work in journalism in a sense, so we both can kind of know how to execute interviews to a certain degree. But I figured it would just be kind of cool to get a little bit about us and sort of how we got here. Bryce being a newer streamer and hitting affiliate and all that stuff, me being around the block a little bit. But ultimately, I think our year is in about a month, I want to say. I don't know the exact date. But whatever. Because that's when we used to record on Mondays, so I used to put them up on Wednesdays sometimes. Or middle of the week. I don't know, whenever I put them up. So like I said, I want to say it's fairly soon. I'm actually going to look up the actual date. Real quick. I want to say.
Been a while. Definitely been a while.
May 7th.
So yeah, we're a little under a month. About 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. So this will take us up to the 1 year, and then I don't know if that we're gonna do for the 1 year. That's maybe when we have our buddy on and we just he can embarrass both of us. But yeah, just taking this time to sort of like get to know us. Maybe we'll have a tear shed. Who knows? I don't know how deep he's gonna take this. I don't know who's gonna ask. I sort of just gave him kind of the peripherals. So yeah. That's what we're gonna do. So take it away, interviewer.
All right, Spects. All right. We talked about this at the beginning, and I was trying to. We came into this. I didn't have a list of questions prepared, but like even when I've done interviews in the past with people, a lot of the time I don't have a lot of questions prepared, and a lot of the time I think interviews go better when you don't.
I think it works better. I mean, we do this.
There is a sense of if you know how to ask follow-up questions, then you can get really good at interviewing without having a list of questions.
I think having a flow of conversation just works more so than questions.
I guess the first question is kind of twofold.
Okay.
I was always told not to answer too complicated, or not to ask too complicated of questions when doing interviews.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you'll be able to kind of get the gist of what the question is asking for.
Okay.
Who is Spects? I'm not asking you to like dox yourself, but who is Spects, and why did you start creating content? And then we'll go from there because I have other questions based on that.
I don't know who the heck Spects is, to be honest with you. So the funny story, I'll lead off with this. The funny story about when the Spects name came up, it wasn't some like hard thought choice. when it came to it, I think I was sitting on my couch because I created my channel, my YouTube channel, I want to say late December. And then my first video on my channel was like shortly after the new year, I want to say. But I really didn't have the name. All I really figured was like gaming TV needed to be in there. But I guess I went with Spects because it was like I wear glasses and it was boom, and that's how that came about. Why did I get into streaming? That is a funny question, or not funny. So I'm trying to think. I worked with a buddy of mine who I worked with. He's also a streamer. His name is Nick. I'm gonna butcher your last name. I'm so sorry, buddy. Nick Chaos. I think he is a Ratchet and Clank streamer. He streamed, and when he did like prep when we worked together. So we were in the back. We were both in the back. We were talking. He brought up he streams, and I'm like, wait, you stream? And I like at this point, like my vision of streaming was like bigger. YouTube was bigger streamers. So like any kind of like number was big to me and all that. But he and I would like talk about it, and then, you know, COVID happened, and hilariously, the funny part was, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't think, one, I would have got a PlayStation. Two, I wouldn't have picked up the show again. And three, I probably wouldn't be playing video games, and I wouldn't have like what I have now. I don't think without that happening, it would have, because me getting my PlayStation was because there was no baseball and I wanted baseball, or I wanted something to do, because I hadn't really, at that point, I didn't have anything really to do. But the minute I could have got a PlayStation, I got the show, because like I said, I had nothing. There was nothing to do at that point. And then played the show for
good times.
Yeah. Played the show, and then like a year going into 21, it was like I started making just YouTube videos because I recorded through my PlayStation. I got a microphone. I think I got like a whole set. It was like a microphone, a boom arm, and like a screen shield for like $30 on Amazon. Plugged it in my PlayStation. Those videos are still up there. I was just recording through my PlayStation. I didn't have a face cam or anything. Early days of streaming were the same way. It was through my PlayStation. And it was really just because, like I said, I think because of COVID, because it was like just a means to an end. I got on it way late. If I had any sense of doing things, I would have just started when COVID started. But I think at that point, like getting a PC and starting would have been impossible. So I started a year later. Hindsight's 2020. But really, that was it. I also jokingly say it was Daddy Dimmu, because like he got me back into the show. Because when I looked up like here's the honest to God thing what happened. I looked up Emily the Show, no money spent. Like, was there a way to play Emily the Show Diamond Dynasty free to play? And he was the first one that came up where it was like, you know, no money spent, and had the guide to like do it. Now, did I do it no money spent that year? No. The only year I truly did it no money spent was last year, and it was awful because I couldn't play as much. But it was really those like comedy of errors that led it to one, like I said, one getting it and all this stuff, and to have this happen, which I think a lot of people who started around the same time I did would say. So that's where all that came about.
Okay. But I mean, so I remember when you started streaming, or not streaming, YouTube videos in particular. And I remember, because I remember you went to your Twitter account and you changed it to.
Yeah, I had to brand everything.
You just took your personal Twitter account and said, "And this is my."
Well, because that had a following, and everything I saw was like, make a new one. And I'm like, why am I making a new one? I didn't tweet that much to begin. One, I didn't tweet that much to begin with, and two, it's not like there was anything like bad on there. A lot of it was the same crap I do now. It was just under a different umbrella.
And so what's funny is, now this is gonna sound kind of, I don't want to, I'm trying to make sure this doesn't sound like mean or anything.
Okay.
But what's funny is I remember when you announced, I'm gonna do gaming on YouTube. I was like, X? Really? Like, mostly because, like, and I mean, that went for me as well as you. That wasn't like, I wasn't sitting there going, I could do this better than Spects could. Mostly because, like, you and I had done stuff where we'd been in front of a camera before. And so I watched your first video to see if maybe, like, you had, like,
God, that
gotten better.
That first video sucked. You know how I recorded
in front of a mic.
You know how I recorded that video?
I would say the first month of videes, I would watch them, and I was just like, oh.
You want to know how I recorded that first video? I had it. I don't have them. But I had just. Here's the behind the scenes for that first video. I recorded it on my PlayStation and did the audio separately, holding. Not this particular one, but like Apple headphones and using that as a microphone like this, which sounds horrid. That's how I think I had to do most of them until I got my actual like microphone, which I think was video too. But those videos were so rough because like I had to sort of reteach myself how to talk. And not to, like, because even at that point, no, I was back. Like I had spoken in front of people before, but it was like I had to like reteach myself to like hold conversations, especially like those first early videos, especially when there was like no face cam. It was just rough, and I don't think I really showed my face until I think the Tatis video, I want to say. It was like the announcement. I remember what it was. It was the announcement video for Emily Show 21. I think that was the first time I showed my face. And the plan wasn't for me to show my face too. I was just going to be the faceless voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. But God, even that video was like loud.
So what? I mean, and so, like, I know in terms of me watching you, your content definitely started. I mean, like I said, it started off rough, and I think that it's going to go for any content creator for the most part. I mean, there are some who are natural to it. There are some who have like a good background before they've gotten into streaming.
Yeah.
But those I think tend to be more the exceptions rather than the rules.
Yeah.
And so, what your journey to the point, because like from my perspective, I don't know if it was gradual, because I know that there was like a small point where I like wasn't watching as much of your videos because, you know, I was busy with this, that, or whatever. But I know like I started hopping back in and watching your streams and watching you do Twitch, like that was probably when I started getting back more into watching all your content. And gradually over time, it's even once you were on Twitch, it still took a little bit more practice.
Yeah.
Was it just so for you, like, to get from where you were to where you are now to where I'm like I sit down and I can enjoy your content now? Like, there's no
to where I'm getting consistent views on YouTube videos. You mean to a certain degree?
But so my question is, what was the journey like to get to the point where you felt more comfortable in front of a camera, to the point where I know for me, like, a lot of the issue came with, and I know how I'll answer this if you ask something similar. But like, what took you from not sounding very comfortable, sounding very forced, sounding very, the camera's just kind of
there,
not necessarily the camera, but being recorded, to where you are now, to where you can be like a natural video game guy?
I mean, the short answer, I guess, is practice. Honestly, that's the short answer.
Was it just constantly hitting the start streaming or start recording button?
You know, I think so. I think part of it too is I don't know if you're gonna ask this, but I've done YouTube content really since I was in high school and college. but I was always like producing and writing, not so much being in front of it. But honestly, it probably was more so practice. I don't think there's like any sort of tips or anything I can give you to be like, I know maybe I can, because you seem to take what I said when you started streaming and took it and ran with it. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is just repetition and just doing things over and over again. Honestly, in terms of like,
I mean, a lot of it was the podcast, but
yeah, I think that's
doing stuff like this was good.
I think there too was knowing, like, the idea of knowing like it's gonna be rough. I mean, unfortunately, I can't go back and watch early streams, but I have like clips of early streams. I won't, like, they were rough, but I guess the seeds were there, because like even like in like the earliest days of doing it, like when I first started it, there's an older video on my channel. I think it's titled Wait, There Are Live Pistachios or something. I'm looking this up.
Is this on Twitch or on
No, it's on YouTube. There Are Live Pistachios. Yeah, it was There Are Live Pistachios. And the only reason I bring this video up is because the person in this video was one of like my first like Twitch friends, and his name was we called him Birch, but it was Iceberg 55. He was like one of the first people I had ever met on Twitch. He was like, and he was an affiliate, and at that point, like when you're a small streamer, like all you're really doing is looking for affiliate. And he was like the first guy who was like, no, I've seen your content. Your content is really, really good. It's just, you have to like be consistent, play things you enjoy, and just keep going. It's going to get there. I see it. And that was a lot of people who are like, no, you're a good streamer. Your stuff's there. It's just a matter of people finding you. And that's the hard thing. So it was a little bit of just like practice and having people who are like, no, there's something there. How far it's going to go, who knows, but you're going to get momentum at some point. And it took me 6 months, but I got it. And then I wanted to quit, but it's neither here nor there. But it was a lot of like ebbs and flows and stuff, but it really is just like, it's practice. It's a lot of practice, a lot of finding your way a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's just practice, because realistically, like you're talking to yourself anyway, for the most part, but there's like smaller things to do. But at the end of the day, it really is just like getting reps in.
Sure. So, I don't know if we really touched on this in that first question much.
Mm-hmm.
But why did you start streaming?
Why did I start streaming? Because I don't know.
You kind of talked about it, but like, was there like I think you've talked in the past about like it was a way to like get your design chops in.
That was part of it. Like that was part of it. Was the idea of like it could lead to other things, and I think one thing COVID forced upon people, including myself, was like the idea of like you can't have all your eggs in one basket. There needs to be like some sort of side hustle in the works, something that's like I don't want to say like pandemic proof, but has like there's enough to where it can like you have your feet into where like if something were to happen, there's some way to like keep the skill set going. And and I've had to use it since, but that was really part of it, was just like one, getting like the editing chops in and the graphic design stuff in, but two, having like a side hustle. It is helpful too, but I didn't go in being like, I'm gonna make money out of it. But like the idea of like knowing like the pandemic really did shift a lot, where it's like, oh, there needs to be like a rainy day fund. There needs to be some sort of like other way to like generate income or get stuff out there. Like, not necessarily like that, but I mean, having the idea of like, oh, if the world shuts down, if the world shuts down again, if there's like a COVID-24, I don't know. I'm saying there is, but there's something where it's like everyone's huddled back inside that, I can at least create content and, do something like that if something wild were to happen, whether like I lose the job, like, I get laid off, I get fired or something, that there's something, to fall back on and throw 8 hours into, like, I think it's just more so I want to have a backup plan while being like, oh, working on editing, working on all this other stuff, working on a live mixer per se and all this stuff while, doing all that stuff. Because I think one thing that I've learned as I gotten older is like learn something new every day, like taking that and doing something with it. And it's way more enjoyable when it encompasses things that, you like.
Sure. Yeah, no, so, we've kind of mentioned it before, but you kind of touched on it. You've had a few, prior to doing your own gaming channel, you had a few, forays into YouTube content. You and I have had a couple together.
Mm-hmm.
But we had Sports Squared.
We did.
And then you were in Hodgepodge Sandwich.
Yeah, we did Hodgepodge Sandwich. We did
both channels with videos are still up.
Yep, unfortunately. Yeah, so there was I'm trying to think. So we had yours, we had Sports Squared, we had a Hodgepodge. The full name was Hodgepodge Sandwich Project. I'm still mad that we didn't use the whole name the entire time, but you're there. And then we had an offshoot called with two of my other friends called Awesome at the Sax. And then in college,
I forgot about Awesome at the
and
Sax.
then in college, me and one of my friends wrote a short, like not a short, but long form ish horror series called The Holloway Project. That's still up there. But a lot of that for us was that was more so me writing than anything. And funny thing is, whenever me and my buddy Taylor, he's been on the podcast, talk about like the Holloway Project, is we've talked about like revamping it and like redoing it, like with how he, like I tell, like we're better at storytelling, we're both better at filming, both better at editing. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Like the idea is like to revisit. I guess because I'm trying to be like, because we want, like we talked about revisiting it with like actual actors, not two college kids who don't know what they're doing. But yeah, what was your question?
No, well, I hadn't quite gotten through my question. I was just mentioning the examples of the experience that led to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Has video game content creation been much more comfortable, fun? I don't know what the word is exactly.
I would say yeah.
And then what the follow-up is going to be.
Do you want me to answer the first part and then we can come back to follow-up?
Go ahead and answer that first part and I'll think about the rest.
I think I would say yes, because it's less, because in a lot of those I was more so like writing, producing stuff than actually like in front of the camera stuff. But I think at the time I was fine with it, just because it's like, I think at that point, because I was so focused on like wanting to be like the editor. It's like we did stuff like that in high school, and it was always like you didn't want to be in front of the camera. You always wanted to be behind the camera. So it was still that mindset, which is hilarious because now I have a freaking camera in my face. But I think it was partially that. I don't necessarily think like doing the comedy stuff like ties into the video game stuff, but I think if I hadn't done that, I don't know if I would be like so eager to jump back into it, because I think like especially YouTube like in those like a decade ago was such a different animal than it is now. That gaming content, like I mean what's funny is in terms of just like gaming content, there were like one of the oldest guys I watched, it was a guy, I don't mean to keep throwing guys out there, but I just want like just the change, was a guy named Shady Penguin. He's a Pokemon, basically a Pokemon Nintendo YouTuber. When this guy started, he's our age, but it was like when I first watched him, he was still dating his now wife, like living at home with his parents. And then like as time's gone on, you know, how he's married, has I think 3 kids, but it was like, I still remember finding him in college when he's playing Pokemon X and Pokemon X and Y. And it got me to pick up, you know, I bought a 3DS and played it. So, but it's like, it harbingers back to like that older YouTuber was like so different. And we thought we could make it as like a comedy thing. And I don't know why we thought we could make it as a comedy thing, but for the longest time it was like, oh, comedy's the way, and video game content wasn't even in it, like in my forefront, because 1, I didn't know how to do it because I had no brain cells, and 2, I didn't have a computer, and I never really thought about computer gaming until I got older. But no, like short answer is no. I never thought like video game content, because I never thought, I guess I always thought like PC gaming and capture cards and all this stuff was like so totally expensive. And I mean, it is, but like all I have, in terms of like recording stuff, yeah, it's a little expensive, but I did it gradually, over time. So if I had known that back then, maybe, but I didn't know that back then. So it wasn't even in the forefront. I honestly, at that point, I probably would have loved to do it, but I always thought it was so far out of reach.
Sure. So the other part of that question is a lot of it comes down to you and I do a lot of our content on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least up to this point,
yeah.
You have now shifted back towards YouTube quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that probably towards the end of the interview, about the reasons and all that. You have released a video that has addressed it now. You did do a stream that addressed it, but you know, we might as well get it on
in
the
spurts
too. But we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the content that you and I have created has been kind of in the let's play category.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily in the same way that the let's plays used to go.
Not when we were like, yeah.
We're not picking up a campaign and just playing through and saying, all right, this is the first quarter of the game, and then next time I'm going to play up to the halfway point or whatever. You know, that was a lot of the content when
we were around, yeah.
But
we were younger.
A lot of the content now that we do is more like, hey, I'm going to play this game. It's not the campaign. I'm just going to do multiplayer.
Yeah.
It might be community driven. It might be whatever. But you've talked about in the past potentially doing stuff that's more evergreen, more informative, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like for me, my first bit of content in that realm was that Rocket League video with the April Fool's stuff. And that's actually been my most well-performing video to date. But has that thought ever crossed your mind to switch, like, as you've going back into your YouTube content, doing kind of this series that you've been doing, which is different than a lot of the stuff you've ever done? Yeah. But has that thought ever crossed your mind to continue to try to like push in that direction where you're doing more like, hey, this video game is cool, look at all these secrets or whatever? I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would be. But
I mean, I guess I can start. I'll go front to back. So when it came to like my content, Twitch wasn't even on the forefront of it, to be completely honest with you. I told that to somebody and they were shocked when I said like Twitch wasn't part of the plan. I just wanted to be strictly YouTube. Maybe it was like the old way of thinking. But live streaming wasn't really a part of it at the time. YouTube was going to be like the main focus because it's just easier. Than that. Go in terms of like secrets and stuff, probably not.
No, not doing videos where you're like, hey, look at this.
Look at
this little aspect of the game.
I kind of did that. I sort of experimented with it last year where it was like the idea of like using like, are there glitches in the show that can yield you results in online play? Like, are there glitches in like mechanics and visuals that, you know, give you a slight edge that you can do? And it, you know, not spending like, not paying your way through it, using like free things or easy accessible things to get it. And I never really followed through with it because it was just, it kind of felt like it became way more trouble than it was worth. And it probably wasn't, but I've always been, I guess, not so much secrets, but I've been, I think if I had to pick one thing to be like, that's the thing I should be like focusing my attention on, at least in the show, is more like low tier, like good cards. Because what's so funny about just like at least the show content, and I'm not that I'm a show creator, really, but I know it's like a lot of my content, which I plan on like throwing some other stuff in, but like using like base card instead of the rare cards, because everyone goes out there and it's like, I got the new 99. But most people aren't gonna get it. So it's like, well, what about them? You're like, is there anyone who's really showing like base cards? And it's like, to a degree, but they're always like this, you know, the lesser stars of the show. And then I did one last year or in 21 where I got like a JD Martinez like card that was low diamond, and I threw it in there and it performed really, really well. And I never stuck with it. I probably should. But like, I don't think I would do like a secrets video, and those videos do really, really well. But if I had to put like my finger on one, it would probably be like the base round cards, because that's what the majority of people are in. And it's like, well, which one's like the biggest bang for your buck? Or like, which one, how does this one perform compared to the others? Like, I guess that's the way I would have done it. And if I had the foresight, I would have stuck with it. But I didn't. So, but that, I guess like, I wouldn't do secrets, but I would, maybe that's the way I would do, is like, be like the common man's sort of streamer or content, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So sorry, that's just collecting my thoughts.
No, you're fine.
So as time has gone on, what has kept you in the game? And I mean, like we can acknowledge the fact that even on this podcast, you have quit streaming.
Yeah.
No, literally, you said at the very least, you said, I doubt I'll ever come back. You guys check out Brycetheprince on his YouTube. Blah blah blah. That was back when I was.
Okay. Do you want me to jump on that, or do you want to?
So yeah, what has kept you going, even in those moments when you felt like quitting?
I don't know, stupidity. I don't know.
That's a good answer.
I think, and I've said this before, my biggest problem is, one, I have my own demons. I definitely do. I might not be like the most forefront with probably that I should be having a platform. But I get really like myopic, and I get really I don't know what the other word is, like hyperbolic is the phrase I use. Because I just don't handle stress well. I never have. And and at that point where it was like a lot of it got to me, was I worked a job that was, I don't want to say a lie, but it was very much it wasn't what I signed up for, where it was like, it wasn't until like I really started putting my foot down where it was like, okay, cool. Where it was like telling him like, hey, I'm not a full-time employee. I don't want to be treated like a full-time employee. Here are my hours. I'm not staying any later than the 8. And even then I'm only going to do like 3 a week if I have to, because there's no exchange here. But when that ended, like, I think that had a lot to do with it, honestly. It was just like coming home frustrated and annoyed because, like, you know how it is, where it's like you're putting, like, it feels like you're putting way more, you're giving more than you're getting, and it's just like, but I'm like, from like when you're part time and it's always the joke of like, well, you're really full time. It's like, but I'm not. Was probably the biggest thing. And I think because of that, it really just put me in a negative headspace a lot of times. And because like, and maybe it's because I have like the social anxiety disorder. But I think it always felt like anytime like I verbalized it to anyone, it was always like, they don't want to hear this nonsense and all that. And when that just, you know, it goes like, it weighs on you and it's just like, it gets overwhelming. And instead of just being like, hey, I'm just taking a step back, it's, and not saying anything, I probably went too far. Like the situation I'm in now, I think I stated like, hey, I'm taking a step back and I'm still producing content. It's not like I'm gone, but I'm still creating content, and I'm using the phrase like, hey, I'm stepping back. I'm working full time. I'm writing on the side and all this stuff. I just don't know. Right now I don't have the time to fit in streaming. I mean, are there other factors at play? Yeah, but really it does come down to right now, everything's so out of balance. Until I can realign everything, that's where I'm at. I'm not as active as I was on Twitch like a few months ago, but it happens. And like I said, I think maybe this time being a little bit more like, it's really just a time thing, and hopefully maybe soon it'll all work out. I'm hoping. But I would say the difference between like me quitting and now is, one, I'm just stating that everything's out of whack, and two, there is still like, I'm still making content. It's just not live content. It's YouTube content, like yeah. I'm still there. I'm just not doing it live for 4 hours. I'm doing it for 20 minutes, and putting it up a couple days later.
Sure. And I mean, so that was going to be one of my last questions about, like, and as we were, and which was what I was about to get into, is like the last few questions here. And so, which was about this most recent step back. So this time I had a little bit more of a,
you had a front row seat to this one.
To this one.
At least a part of it.
This is the most involved I've gotten in your content.
Mm-hmm.
In the past year, it went from me just being like, okay, hey, let's do the podcast, which was like a once a week thing. And then I, tried to tune in for your live streams, and that was about it. Once I started, really kicking up my YouTube going again, and then once I got into Twitch and everything, did it help at all? This almost sounds like a self-serving question, but did it help at all this time to, like, did it help prevent this time I'm stepping away from streaming altogether and I'm not doing it again, to have me sit there and say, well, I don't think you want to step away completely yet. Just maybe step back. Did that help at all? Like,
I mean,
obviously without going too much into the conversation.
No,
I don't wanna,
no.
delve too deep into what we talked about, but
I'll give it this much. I think having someone who understands how like the idiosyncrasies of me helps a lot. One, but I think two, when it comes to that, like I maybe it is the back end of everything, but I don't know. I think maybe being more proactive and understanding it, because like I will say I have told people like I'm probably not coming back, and it's like when they go on, it's like when I say like I really just don't have the time, and they're like, okay, that's understandable, which like I said is like probably 90% of the reason, to be honest with you. It's just like a time thing. Like I said, there is another issue, but I think that's more so of an issue like I don't want to say in my ex. I think there is like a problem, but it's one that like I can't actively go out and fix. So with being like, I can only control what I control. And right now there's not really a whole lot. So instead of like focusing on like stuff I can't control, it's like, what can I control? Well, I not be, like I might not be able to be straight. Like I stream for an hour and a half in 3 weeks, and in 21 days. It's probably it's going to be the shortest amount I stream probably in a month. So it's like, yeah, but it's one of those bits too, where it's like, until I can find some kind of balance, it's where it's going to be, where I can't, as for now, I can't sit back and do 4 hours or even 2. Sure. It just like, I don't have the time. But I think, like I said, I think maybe it is having you who's just like, no, just take your step back. And the majority of people have understood when I just started out there. I don't know how many people outside of us know the full aspect of it. But like I said, I at least saying like the 90%, most people are like, no, I get it. Like if you're writing, you're working full time. Yeah, that's going to take a lot of time. And like, at least people get it. And like I said, maybe it is because I am being more upfront about it than I was before. So I don't necessarily know if it's what the reason is. Maybe I think more or less it's that I understand it better, or maybe because I'm just not I jumping back into YouTube, it makes it seem like I'm not going to the gas station to get milk as much.
Yeah. So I guess I got 2 questions left, and then I'll kind of give you just like a, if I haven't touched on anything sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The first of my two remaining questions is, if there is someone out there who's listening to this, and kudos to them if they've listened this long, who's maybe interested in starting their own content creation, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, what would you recommend for them in terms of getting into it and producing something that's worthwhile?
Don't is the short answer.
Don't. But if they're set on,
if they're gonna do it,
what piece of advice would you give them?
If they're like hell bent on it, like they're a broke college kid who's like, I'm good at like League of Legends, I would say, above all else, have fun, because if you're having fun, other people are gonna have fun. I think I told you that. Like off the rip was like, have fun, because people can tell if you're not having fun. Which
was why I stopped playing Hogwarts Legacy, and I'll talk about that when we do it.
Yeah, and like I said, it was like one is like, one, have fun. I think 2, don't worry about numbers. I think like I got so entrenched on it for a minute that it took away of like what I want to do, because I wanted like the most eyes on me, and I still worry about that to a certain degree. Like I just want like give me all the eyes.
It's really easy to do when you have momentum too.
Yeah, I think I said that to you too.
Through momentum. And
Well,
you mentioned it.
I think I said that word for word.
Which is super fun.
Yeah, I literally said Twitch is fun when that ball's rolling and you're getting like I think right now you're averaging like 5 or 6 viewers a stream, and it's like when that momentum is rolling, you're gonna go like 5 or 6 hours. Like last week we were supposed to he was streaming his first village stream. Me and CJ, who was on the podcast last week, we were playing Halo, and he and I were just laughing the entire time. Because you were just going, and we were just like, nah, man, you're feeling it. Don't let us get in the way. And then you jumped in afterwards. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And both of us were like, no, we could see you're still at 10 viewers and you're still going. Like, don't feel guilty. We've been there. As much as that is a high, like, it's gonna fade.
Like the numbers are easy to get caught up in when you're doing really well. But they're also really easy to get caught up in when you're not doing well at all. It's kind of that middle ground where like when I got to about 20-25 followers, and before I started doing Mario Maker content and started really building my
because you're foaming at the mouth you're starting to foam at the mouth a little bit.
That's the thing is like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. What if I can, hit 100? What if I can, like, it's really easy to start getting caught up in those thoughts. But that's why I've tried, like, for me, and again, I'll talk more about this when we're doing my interview. For me, it became a matter of I had to reel myself in and say, look, I'm still going to play Valheim. I'm still going to play these other games that aren't necessarily going to get me the views because that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I'll give you this much. I think I learned the hard way from somebody else what happens when you get... me and them, we said caught up in the noise, and it's like I did it, they did it, we to a certain degree, like they did it way worse than I did, but when you, I don't want to say sell your soul to the devil, but when you're so hyper focused on it, you kind of just lose track of it. So it's like, don't even worry about the numbers. Like one, I would say it's like, one, if you're having fun, two, you're not really putting expectations on it, you're probably going to do better than most, because ultimately there's not a viewer or content creator out there who isn't doing it because they're having some sort of fun. Any of these guys you go into who do this thing for a living full time, or honest, or if they will probably tell you up most of 20 times, like they're thankful for you being there. And a lot of times us smaller creators sometimes lose that. Hell, I know people who have like thousands of viewers who kind of lose, who do forget that sometimes. But it really is just like, have fun. Don't worry about like the viewers or the payments. Just continue what you're doing. Like, the craziest bit is both Bryce and I are technically successful Twitch streamers. I'm probably still ranked. I know he's ranked. We're both like in the top 100,000 streamers. Like that's where, he and I rank. Like we're both successful. I've gotten payouts. He hasn't gotten one yet because he just started. But I've gotten a handful of them. Like, do I make a lot of money? No, but like in the grand scheme of YouTube, I'm top 10%. He's top 10%. And we're not big by any stretch of the imagination. So even when you're like, if you are new and you're like, you're, getting there and all that stuff, it doesn't take a lot to be like the top streamer, really, in the grand scheme of things. Like if you're averaging 3 to 4 viewers, you're in the top 5%. Like you're a success. It might not feel like it because it sure as hell doesn't feel like it to me. But you are one. There are Twitch streamers I follow who average 1 to 2 every time they stream. But it's like he and I go live most of the time. We're getting 5 to 6, and that's wild. So I would do like, wild. Yeah, it's just like, it really is just like, as long as you're having fun and you're doing something you enjoy, It'll get there. It's not going to happen overnight.
Well, yeah, and I've even told you like I think it was last Saturday I played some Valheim for a stream. I ended up averaging, I think, 4 or 5 viewers that stream.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole ton of chatting, which I think a lot of the fun in Twitch comes from when you have a lot of people talking and chatting and doing all that stuff. That makes it more fun. It makes it easier to do. But when you're doing a game where you're like, this is just a game I like, and it's like you're still averaging like that amount where you're like, huh, there's still people tuning in. It's definitely a high.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's hard to go away from. But so my last question for you though is well, I don't want to say too long term, but in the near future, besides YouTube content, what do you see for yourself in the near future?
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't. I'm not.
And I'm not talking necessarily Twitch. I'm just saying like
I don't know.
Like
I don't mean that like
be working on. Maybe that's the better question.
I don't know. I honestly, I'm not pinning myself down anymore. My my mantra, I guess, for going into this year was quality over quantity. And I think I've lived up to it so far to a certain degree. That's really what I'm going for. I'm trying to be like, I want it. If I'm doing something, it's going to be like my best. It's not going to be like, I'm not holding myself to any sort of streaming schedule. I'm not holding myself to like anything. I'm just sort of like, hey, let's do it. I'm going to do it. If all willing. And it's like, I was having this conversation earlier and it's like, will I go back to some sort of like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday thing? Maybe. Or will I continue to go when I feel like it? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Could it happen? Sure. Will it happen?
So would it be fair to say the focus for now is just mental health?
I don't even say the focus is necessarily mental health. It might be to a certain degree, but I would say right now it's just like I want to get the ducks in a row, and that's going to take some time. That's going to take time. I think in my update, I sort of made the comment like, give me till the end of the month, and hopefully I have a better answer. And that's all I can really do. Just be like, sure. Is that? It's just hey, if you're still there, cool. If not, I get it. It doesn't bother me. And like I said, I think for most people, when it's like, when they ask like, where have you been? It's like, oh, I'm just busy. I just don't have the time. Like, oh, a lot of it's like, okay, like, all that. I think that's different than me being like, oh, I don't stream anymore. But like I said, I think when it comes from a different place, it fits differently. Just like I said, despite it probably not being the full reason, and that 10% that it is feels like it's a lot more. But ultimately, it's just when everything's sort of all up in the air, it's rough. But like I said, I don't know. Like I said, like I said in the video, in the update video, it's like, hey, give me till May, and hopefully by then I have some sort of like feel again. I might not, but I'm gonna try to hopefully do a little bit more. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not. I don't have too much of an answer, and that's sort of why like. I don't know. Like I didn't necessarily, and I'm only throwing you in this because you're kind of involved. It's like I don't mean to be like, oh, I don't want to play Terraria or I don't want to play Valheim. It's like I don't mean that like in that sense, but I like what I do mean is like I don't know. I didn't want to. I didn't want to like break anything off, but I didn't want to be like flat out cancel it, because I don't know if other people enjoyed it. Not that you can play Treyarch like on your own, but you know what I mean, where it's like, I don't know if there's some people who are like, oh, I want to see both of them together. Like, I don't know. So like,
I think there was only one person.
Well,
and that was Jess.
Well, still, but like you know what I mean, where it's like, I don't want to be the reason like I'm ending the series because I'm like, you know, I'm the one in crisis. You know, in crisis. I'm not in crisis, but like I'm so out of whack that.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I'm not putting myself anything on to say. It's like, give me 2 weeks and I'll hopefully be in a spot where it's like, okay, I can stream a little bit more. I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not putting anything absolute in. I think that's just dumb. And all that. So I'm taking it one day at a time. And that's all I can really do. Is like I said, it's not like I stopped making content. I've been uploading regularly on YouTube. So there's still ways to see me. It's like I said, it's not live. I'm sorry if you are like, I want him to stream again. I don't know. Well, that'll be regularly. Be patient. And like I said, I'm hoping by May I'm going to be a little bit more flexible with it, and I'll have some sort of plan. But I mean, you got Bryce to watch, so there's plenty of other good streamers that deserve your viewership that aren't me, whether that be, you know, a number of them. It's just the unnecessary, you know, it's just the nature of the beast. We get older and crap gets out of whack. I mean, you got wife and kids. I'm a 30-year-old man who doesn't have any of that. But like, you know, life gets in the way a lot of times, and you just got to pick and choose. Like, streaming's, as dumb as it sounds, streaming's not that important at the end of the day. Everything else is. And
I agree.
I've learned, at least in the first 4 months of the year, that that I need to prioritize like more IRL stuff than virtual stuff. And if people don't like that, then I can't help you. I'm not I'm not gonna like force myself to do it. Like, there's stuff I still want to do. Like, I would love to go back and play Persona 5, like, and stuff. Like, I want to play Valheim. There's other stuff I want to do. But for me to do that right now, I don't think it's good content doing live, and I don't want to subject anyone to like half-ass content, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah. By the way, if you ever want to play Valheim off stream, I'm always
No, I know.
I am more than, you know me with video games. It's more
no, I
than
know.
I know. Stream as far as like
right now, and I'm in show grind mode, and that was one thing I was trying to do this week, was like pull away a little bit, and I kind of succeeded, but I kind of didn't. Yeah, but I'm trying. I'm sort of weaning myself back. It's just a matter of like, it's baby steps. And like I said, I think once I get over mentally the other 10%, I'll probably be in a better spot. It's just that that nonsense is going to take a while. And I wish I could speak more on it. I really do, but I don't need, I don't know the right words. I don't want to bring any unnecessary stuff my way. And it's rough when I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Maybe, I guess like I said that. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells on Twitch right now. And maybe it's all in my own head, but it really does feel like I'm walking on eggshells. And until you know, we get the conversation that's not, I know it's probably not going to happen, or some sort of like release, it's going to be mentally rough, and I'm not going to subject my viewers anyone else to like that nonsense. I'm not going to deal with it. So we'll see. Like I said, give me till May. Hopefully it ends there, but who knows? I like I said, I'm not making any promises on anything, but we'll see.
So, as I said before, the last question I always ask in any given interview, and your answer could literally be, no, there's not really anything. My last question is always, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you wanted to touch on? Not necessarily in terms of like, oh, this is future content, or want to make sure I get this out of the way. Like, is there anything in terms of your background as a streamer or as a video game content creator or any of that? Anything we've talked about or haven't talked about that you wanted to be like, yeah, this is who I am?
I don't think so. I think we got most of it. You know me pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to touch on all the mostly non-personal stuff. So
no, I was fine. Like I said, I don't know. I think you did a decent enough job.
So yeah, that's who Spects is to everybody. I think that's what we got for this week. We made it to
over an hour.
Actually, this is a longer interview than I was expecting.
I also just love talking.
So, you and I share that in common.
There you go. I know. Then I don't have to talk next week.
So next week potentially we'll have one of our buddies on.
If not,
depends.
If not, we'll flip the role.
It just depends. We'll just.
He also has married and has children.
We'll get it.
So yeah, I know it's difficult, but we're kind of.
He would probably be into video game content creation if he wasn't.
I don't know.
As invested in everything else he does.
I don't know. That's probably something that I never asked him that, honestly.
We could ask him if he's ever thought about it.
I guess I wonder, because I know this when I was up there in January doing stuff with him, and we were talking about like, oh, how are we growing like where he works and his stuff. And I was like, well, you gotta get on social media. And he's like, sort of, kind of like, I don't know. I know I'm the same way because I am terrible at posting like on anything but Twitter. But it's like, that's how you grow. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
in this day and age.
I don't know. Like maybe he would. I don't know. I don't want to ask him. Like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe to a certain degree. Well, maybe a podcast. Maybe that's what he would do.
We'll see. We'll see what we can
get out of him
in terms of talking to him in the next week or two. But yeah, until next week, hopefully you guys enjoyed this little bit of insight into who Spects is, and I know I did. It's always interesting to, even though I know Spects as well as I do, even though him and I are like brothers. I feel like I still learn something new every time I talk. So I like every time we talk together. So, anyways, yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast episode, and until next time, we'll see you guys next week.
See you in the next one.